Welcome, everybody, to the Shelly Palmer CES 2019 pre-show webinar. I'm Shelly Palmer. I'm going to walk you through some of the things we're hoping to see at CES this year. If you are interested in learning more about what we're going to do at CES, you can visit ces.shellypalmer.com at any time. If you haven't registered for our level set breakfast, which Discovery Networks is kind enough to put on. That happens Tuesday, January 8th from 8 to 10 a.m. at ces.shellypalmer.com. You can request an invitation. We'd be very happy to have you join us there. Pardon me. We also have our Innovation Series breakfast, which will take place at 8 to 10 a.m. on Wednesday, January 9th. The VIP reserve seating opens at 7 a.m. 7:30 is general seating, and the program will start pretty promptly at 8 o'clock. We actually serve breakfast at the Innovation Series breakfast, so I hope that you will be kind enough to join us. Again, you can go to ces.shellypalmer.com to register or to request an invitation. But if you're on this particular webinar, you are absolutely invited to join us. Before I get started, I really want to thank our featured partners, Samsung and Facebook and Univision, PwC and Quantcast. Without them, none of this would be possible. And our supporting partners, AdAge, Grant Thornton, NACD, Innovid, and the Internet of Things Consortium. We are very, very pleased to have them supporting us, and we hope you will support them. So let's get into it. CES 2019, 180,000 of our closest friends. Technically, there will be 20,000 plus product announcements, roughly 4,000 exhibitors, something like 2.6 million net square feet of floor space. It's really 3 or 4 different venues now because you have the LVCC, which they call Tech East, the Sands Convention Center, and the Venetian, which are technically Tech West. Then there's C-Space, which takes place at the Aria, and there are other venues being swirled around the city that are all part of CES. It's owned and operated and produced by the Consumer Technology Association. CTA is their registered trademark, and CES is the registered trademark of the CTA as well. It used to be the Consumer Electronics Show, now it's just CES. Things about CES that have not changed: it's still probably the most interesting place to meet people who are tangentially doing what you're doing, but from a completely different angle. It makes CES one of the most interesting and exciting shows to attend. If you're going to be at CES early, Monday night, the big keynote is IP Park from LG Electronics. Ginny Romney from IBM is on Tuesday. Hans Vestberg from Verizon is on Tuesday as well. And Lisa Su from AMD, Advanced Micro Devices, will be there on Wednesday. These keynotes are generally open to CES badge holders, but my advice to you is if you want a decent seat, you want to get there relatively early. They queue up like an hour before, and to be fair, lines get pretty long. They don't tend to lock people out, but you end up in the nosebleed seats for sure. I think IP Park is going to be very crowded, and certainly Ginny and Hans and Lisa will be too. For holiday shopping habits, courtesy of the CTA Tech Briefing, we saw roughly $464 per adult spent in the U.S. This holiday season. And it shouldn't surprise anybody that Amazon Echo was on top of the heap. All of the voice-assisted devices were really, really popular this year. TVs and laptops, they always are perennial bestsellers. This year, 4K has hit pretty hard. There's no 4K content per se, unless you're getting over-the-top television from Netflix or Amazon Prime or Apple or Roku, and even there the offerings are pretty thin. The satellite companies have some 4K. Dish and Direct both offer a way to get to Netflix, and there's actually a 4K channel on DirecTV. Not a lot of offerings. It sort of reminds me of Discovery Sunrise at the beginning of HD televisions and 2K TV sets, when watching the sunrise over some desert on Discovery Channel was more interesting, honestly, on Discovery HD than regular programming in standard definition. And the other thing that happened a little bit this year was omni shipping. The idea was that you would have a user experience that was consistent across all the potential venues, whether you're on your handheld, on a tablet, on a laptop, in the store, by smoke signal, by carrier pigeon. This seemed to be a trend in 17, and it was definitely a trend in 18. The CTA believes that curated social buying was also trending. I think that's probably true. I'm not sure recommendation engines have gotten significantly better, but I do think that human curation has been integrated into really favorable UX and UI designs, and that has actually had quite a big impact over the last few months, and I think that's a trend that will continue. Smart home is coming into its own, courtesy mostly of voice devices. What makes a smart home device interesting, of course, is that it works with the other smart home devices you have, so you can control it. Alexa Voice Services helps that happen, as does HomePod, as does Google Home. And the last of the trends we saw happening this year, and we think we're going to see happening to next year, are all of the concierge services. The clear winners are Home Advisor and Angie's List, but there are many, many more. Moving on, I think this year's holiday spend, and CTA confirmed, is very much like last year's holiday spend. I'm not going to read the list for you, but it's TVs and computers and smartphones and tablets. Roughly $96 billion is getting spent in Q4 of this year. It's more or less a little bit up from 17. Which is great. I don't know if it's enough up for us to say there's something wonderful happening, but certainly the industry is happier than sadder. A lot of people didn't see a reason to buy a new smartphone this year. Apple is really sad about that. I'm not sure that number is reflected in these estimates. Now, AI is going to be all over CES. There is almost no version of the world where someone's not going to tell you that they are AI enabled. It is such an overused buzz phrase, really remarkably overused. Some people will tell you that machine learning is the overarching technology, and artificial intelligence is a subset of machine learning. Some people will tell you that machine learning is a subset of artificial intelligence. Forgetting the nomenclature for a moment, computers are starting to act as though they think as we think. That does not mean that computers think the way we think. In fact, computers are far from it, and no AI thinks the way we think. They're not human, they're computers, but they're able to do tasks that make us believe that they are thinking the way we think. Every single booth at CES, every display is going to have some version of sensors that are looking at inputs, whether that's a temperature sensor, a camera sensor, or an optical sensor of a different kind, not visible light, pressure sensor, barometric pressure sensor, or chemical sensor. There's going to be sensors everywhere. That data is going to be collected, and turning that data into action is going to be the job of some kind of algorithm, whether it's a machine learning algorithm, whether it is a neural network, whether it is simply heuristics in a spreadsheet. People are going to be turning data into action. So the amount of hype and the hype machine around AI at CES will really need to be sorted out. Most people will tell you that they have an artificial intelligence system incorporated into their offering. My guess is not really. My guess is it's a wish, and there'll be a lot of vaporware. One of the trends that CTA identified, as did we, is this idea of a whole home AI. Last year at Hisense and Huawei and Haier, we saw air conditioners and washers and dryers and certain devices that learned from what happened to them. So our Hire had a really interesting air conditioning system. They were wall air conditioners, but they kind of remembered how you set them and were aware of the temperature outside and got a sense of what your preferences were over time for the outside temperature and what it needed to do in the internal temperature, and learn the patterns of when you were going to be home and not home and use it. And I thought that was pretty fascinating. And that technology doesn't require the most sophisticated AI. In fact, it doesn't require sophisticated anything. It's a pattern matching tool set, and it's pretty easy to deploy. So you're going to see a lot of that this year because it's a parlor trick that people are going to love. Who doesn't want their air conditioner to be totally set the right way, and who doesn't, over time have it learn and get better on a regular basis? We did talk from a moment ago about digital assistants. Amazon and Google will be all over CES this year, but they've been all over CES for about 3 years, and it's fascinating. 3 years ago, there were roughly 1,100 skills demonstrated. A skill is a name for an app that an Amazon Echo would be able to provide to you through Alexa voice services. So there are lots of different Echoes now. There's the Echo Show, there's the Echo Dot, the Echo Spot. There are Echo Plus, which has a smart home hub in it. Echo Dot has a no speaker. There's even a little $35 tool that enables anything to basically be Alexa voice services compatible. 3 years ago, we noticed something about interoperability and the capabilities of compatibility, if you will, that had never happened before, because ecosystems like Sony or an eco like PS4 or Xbox were never meant to work together. Androids don't work with iPhones. Samsung sets are not necessarily compatible with Sony sets. Samsung would always, of course, be compatible with a Samsung washer dryer and a Samsung dishwasher and a Samsung refrigerator and the smart hub in the set and the Galaxy handset or tablet you have. But it didn't necessarily have any reason to work with anything else. But the voice assistants changed all that because they could interface with everything. And so last year, there was a kind of a joke going on, is that every booth we went to, there was two stickers. One was the Alexa voice services sticker, and the other was the Google sticker, and it was compatible with Google and Amazon. There are other choices now. Siri is still hanging in there. Everybody who's got an iPhone or an iOS device has Siri. Samsung is really starting to press Bixby into service. Who's going to win? Is there going to be a meta service? Will there be a common language? These are all things to look out for at CES. But one thing you will see is voice assistants everywhere, built into everything. It will be able to understand you. It will listen, and it will act. One of the most interesting things AI is capable of doing right now is pattern matching and recognition. You probably have been watching the news. There is a ton of facial recognition stuff going on right now. Just the other day, a free app was introduced. You could, if you are a Shelly Palmer newsletter reader, read Context of the Future every day, or follow me on Twitter. You probably know that you can now drop the background out of even a complex photo with one button tap, and it is an AI-assisted tool that does that. That's actually one of the most telling tools that we've seen, and we'll see it all over CES. But here's the thing you need to remember. As you're going through CES and you're looking at devices that require human intervention or human interaction in order to make them work well, the question is, can purple be reversed out to red and blue after it's mixed? And that's actually what AI is great at, finding the component molecules or component parts and pulling it apart. So whether it's taking out a background, creating a deep fake so that you put Elon Musk's head on a different actor and put him into a movie, or whether you put Robert De Niro's head on a different actor and put him in a movie, or you make him younger or older, or we just recognize faces. Facial recognition, obviously it's built into your iOS device. That's fairly sophisticated, but that is the tip of the iceberg compared to what is actually happening in pattern recognition and face recognition. Pattern recognition, of course, goes all the way from natural language processing and natural understanding, automatic speech recognition. And in case you're wondering, Google AI is no slouch in this particular area. Google Translate, which is a fascinating product, which not only translates spoken words, but written words, and also tries to match fonts, is the largest AI project on the planet at the moment. There's a good reason for that. Roughly 20% of the people on planet Earth speak English. 50% of the internet is written in English. So if Google could get a handle on that, they'd be doing all right. As you can imagine, they are putting an unlimited amount of money behind Google AI and Google Translate. I don't know how we're going to get through CES without having 5G conversations day and night. It's right now marketing hype. I have been going around and around with all of my friends about 5G. Everybody's got a different opinion. I don't think there is a single source of truth in 5G. The technology at the moment is a marketing specification, not an engineering specification. There are several different engineering specifications for 5G. There's mid-band, there's low-band, there's frequency spectrums that need to be purchased. If T-Mobile and Sprint actually merge, we're going to have, they've got over one big hurdle. The Foreign Investment Committee said yes, and so did DOJ. So now they're going to get through the FCC. But assuming that happens, how big of a 5G network can they field, and what will that mean? Are we going to see the industrial internet take off immediately on 5G? Is this going to be something really important for autonomous vehicles? I like Brian Modoff's quote about, we spent the last 30 years connecting people. We're going to spend the next 30 years connecting things. I think that's probably right. But as usual, the question is timing. It's not if this is going to happen. This is going to happen. That's not, 5G isn't a question. I don't think it's not, will it exist? Yes, it will exist. Is it going to exist in a time frame where you need to deal with it this CES? I think it's important to think about it. You're certainly going to hear a lot about it. There's no question about that. So I'd be remiss if I didn't go over the primary advantages of 5G and why people think it's the next coming. Latency is this idea of a delay. In other words, how long it takes for a signal to get from place to place. Human beings react in somewhere between 400 and 500 milliseconds. If you are driving a car and you're a normal person, not a professional athlete or somebody who's got super fast twitch muscles like a championship esports player, if you're just a normal human being and something stimulates you to step on the brake, you see something that makes you want to stop the car, it's going to take you the better part of 400 milliseconds, 0.4 of a second to step on the brake. 4G is way faster than that. 4G is in the 10 millisecond range. It can be worse depending on contention and the strength of the signal and how far you are from the tower. And there's a bunch of things that can change the millisecond count. But for the most part, 4G is roughly in the 10 millisecond zone. Human beings cannot discern a second sonic presence under about 5 milliseconds. So if I had two violins playing, but they were delayed less than 5 milliseconds apart, or two trumpets, or two trombones, or two pianos playing that were equally tuned, and they were less than 5 milliseconds apart, you couldn't tell that they were separate sounds. And your ears are very sensitive to that. So human beings have a pretty good understanding of latency. 5G is looking like it's going to be in the 1 to 2 millisecond range. That gets fascinating for a couple of reasons. First of all, what makes 5G awesome, 1 millisecond awesome, is that imagine you have a self-driving vehicle, an autonomous vehicle that's pushing level 4 or 5. Level 5 being no steering wheel, no brake, no gas pedal. It's basically a module that comes and picks you up. And we're pretty far away from a level 5 autonomous vehicle, but let's just play pretend for a minute that we want to go all the way back from there to where we are now, which is level 2 or level 3, which is really high quality driver assistance. That's adaptive cruise control and lane assist and the ability to park the car automatically. If you pass out, the car can slow down and pull over to the side of the road, checking in front of it and behind it to make sure nothing bad happens. These are all good driver assistive functions, but they take an immense amount of processing power, and the sensors are relatively expensive. The headlight in my car in 1980, I think, cost $5 in $1980. I was unfortunate enough to have someone back into the headlight of my Audi S7 a couple of years ago. $2,400 later, they replaced the front light. Why was it $2,400? Because it wasn't just the light. All of the sensors and the cameras on the right side of the car were built into the headlight. Who knew? So that was a really good lesson in three things. One, the insurance companies are much less happy with self-driving vehicles than they will be in the future when they don't have as many accidents. And two, there's an awful lot of processing power and a lot of sensor power in the cars. Now imagine you could use really dumber sensors and dumber computational tools in the car, and with only a 1 or 2 millisecond delay, get up to the cloud and have the heavy computational work done in the cloud, and then come back to the car, all inside of it 1 or 2 or 3 milliseconds, which is literally faster than you as a human being could know that it happened. It's way faster than you could ever step. We're talking 400 times faster than you could step on the brakes. So all of a sudden, self-driving cars have a lot more computational power, have a lot more ability than they do right now, and it all doesn't happen at the edge. And so vehicle-to-vehicle communication, coupled with lesser complex sensors, less expensive and lesser sensors on the edge at the car or in the vehicle itself, and then heavy-duty computational power done in the cloud courtesy of 5G, that could have a really big impact over time. To say nothing about the amount of data you can push through 5G or its promise. The overarching speed of 5G is going to be significantly, actually an order of magnitude better than 4G. The average person doesn't need the speed. The things we do require the speed, and the amount of things we do. If you're going to watch a 4K television signal by yourself, you could probably do that without a lot of muss or fuss right now on 4G, depending on the plan you have. If you have one of the 75 gig Verizon everything everywhere plans, you probably watch anything you want at the moment. But if you have 5 people in the house with 5 different 4K devices, you just need more bandwidth, and it's both a capacity issue and a speed issue. You need those bits coming in quick, and you need an awful lot of them coming in at once. Big fire hose with a lot of pressure. Just to continue on, self-driving cars, the North Hall of CES is, for all intents and purposes, the Las Vegas Auto Show. It's just before the Detroit Auto Show. All the main car companies, I think all 9 major car companies are at CES, and they all have their coolest stuff there. It's going to be important this year to understand where we are. We're kind of at the end of assistive vehicles now. We're sort of in the middle of these driver assist semi-automated tools. The Teslas are co-piloting with you, so the neural network or cognitive agent that they're using, I'm not even sure it is a neural network, it might just be straight machine learning tool set, but the machine learning tools that they are using to drive a Tesla co-pilot with you. So it watches you drive, and it tries to learn from the decisions you make based on the inputs from the sensors that the car has. And so we're kind of there right now, in all cars that are doing a good job of learning to be independent are doing a pretty good job of co-piloting. The estimates are 2030. Where you have real autonomy. We're talking level 3, level 4, where there's maybe a human in the car, but they don't have much to do or anything to do, and where the cars themselves can navigate roads that are not necessarily in urban environments, where they can map every inch of everything. Will a car in 2030 need a steering wheel? That's the question you got to keep asking yourself. And what would be the reason it would need one? That's another important question you keep asking yourself. Why would a car need a steering wheel in 2030? It's a hard question to answer right now. One thing we do know is that Uber ordered 24,000 Volvos for delivery that are self-driving. They're supposed to be delivered at the end of 19 or early 20. Now, from my perspective, I tell this as a kind of a joke, tongue firmly in cheek, every time I do a speech. From my perspective, all Ubers are already self-driving. You press a button, the car shows up, guy takes you where you want to go, or the car takes you where you want to go. You don't need to talk to the driver at all. But there's a major difference between an Uber with a person driving it and an Uber where the car drives itself. And the main difference is the cost per mile. It's roughly $2 a mile to put an Uber driver behind the wheel of a car. It's roughly 30 cents a mile for the car to drive itself. And depending on how 5G and edge computing and simpler, cheaper sensors show up, that's going to be a race to the bottom. So all of the future of autonomy is going to be on display at CES, and we'll be looking at that pretty hard and pretty fast throughout the whole show. Just so that you know it's real, this is a list of investments made by Big Auto this year in autonomy and self-driving tech. Our friends at Aptiv have an incredible array of tools. That's the old Delphi company that has renamed itself to Aptiv. They do a bunch of OEM stuff. They're not the only ones. Friends at BlackBerry actually have a set of offerings in both the entertainment system and in the computers that become the central nervous systems of the car. One of the things that's new for CES this year is called Resilience and Resilient Tech. As you know, very sadly, we've had some incredible climate events in the last couple of years and natural disasters, earthquakes, tsunamis, incredible hurricanes. And as we as a society become more and more dependent on technology, how do we recover and how quickly and how resilient are we as a society when a natural disaster or even a man-made disaster occurs? And so we're going to see a lot of companies at CES this year that are dealing with energy and safety and health and cyber, and all through the lens of how quickly can we recover from a big event. And we're kind of excited about that. That's long overdue at CES. We're excited to see it there. Smart cities will be on display. We've gone over all the independent parts of it. You can think of it as a melange or a symphony or a mixture of all the technologies we just spoke about, because a smart city needs all of it, and all of it will be on display. And of course, the lens you want to look at it through is data privacy, data security, turning data into action. What will you do with the data? How will you shepherd the data? How will you steward it? And how will you take care of it? We're going to obviously have a really good opportunity to see the evolution of digital health and everything from various therapies, from eStim to monitoring. Apple Watch 4th generation has EKG, 2-lead EKG built into it. I've been using it now for 2 weeks. I know what my EKG is. I just don't know what it means. And my doctor doesn't either. So that goes for both of us. Sports training and sports fitness. There are all kinds of new tools that we will see on display. And we are very excited to show you the evolution of digital health at CES. And I've got a personal weight loss journey I'll be sharing with some of you as well. So just to recap in the last few minutes of our half hour, CES 2019, AI, machine learning, cognitive agents, neural networks, any name you have for it, you're going to see it. We are going to be deluged and overwhelmed by digital assistants of every possible kind, from Bixby to Siri to Google Assistant to Apple's home product, and of course, Alexa voice services and all things Alexa. They will be everywhere in everything. 5G, 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 we're certainly going to be there. Autonomous vehicles, you're going to see, and people will be ogling at. We talked about resilient tech, smart cities, consumer health wellness, sports training, and digital healthcare for sure. And of course, there will be consumer electronics, which I saved for the very last minute because it's only going to take a minute. There'll be a couple new handsets, a couple new TVs. Look for 8K and look for experiences, because that's what the big tech companies are going to be showing us, how they expect consumers to act and live and work in a data-driven world. You will be able to find us, the Palmer Group, in the North Hall lobby. We have a booth there that's pretty well branded, so we won't be we will be very easy to find, or we won't be hard to miss. Again, you can visit ces.shellypalmer.com for any information you need to register for either the Level Set Breakfast or the Innovation Series Breakfast. If you have questions, we are happy to answer them. ces@shellypalmer.com is a valid email address you can use. Most of you here on the webinar today are clients and friends, and I want to thank you very much for spending this half hour with me. I have to tell you, I am more excited about this CES than I've been at just about any CES ever. So I'm looking forward to seeing you there. But if I don't speak to you personally beforehand, and I see so many of you, I don't think I will, please accept my very best wishes for a happy, healthy holiday and a prosperous and safe new year. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.